Shannon should just step out with his boyfriend and let people know I'm bisexual, but this is who I'm with. And every now and then I experience my wild side.
You think he's a zest monster?
I definitely think he's bisexual.
When Unc say he want to date younger men, they killed me. What they say? What the women? What? Yeah, what I said I want to date younger women. What I said? Oh, when I want to date, when I want to date younger women.
Hey, the shit that he planned don't work. I'm gonna come up with something.
The internet didn't just wake up, it exploded. Overnight, timelines flooded with claims that 50 Cent leaked secrets about Shannon Sharpe, and suddenly a whisper turned into a wave. But that wave didn't start with 50. It started on April 24, 2025, when a woman known as Gabby, also called Carly on OnlyFans, filed a civil lawsuit that landed like a sledgehammer. She accused Shannon of serious misconduct over a 2-year relationship and demanded more than $50 million in damages.
Here's the final stop of the day. Total Wines. See the line started over there. My last stop of the day. We got up early, had a late night. We don't do excuses here. We just get the job done. But this one we signed up for.
Within hours, the story jumped from message boards to mainstream and everyone had an opinion. Shannon didn't flinch. He stepped forward and called it exactly what he believed it was, a setup. He said the relationship was consensual from start to finish, and the only thing that changed was his bag getting bigger. As he told it, this wasn't about justice, it was about a payday. He spoke like a man ready for smoke. Firm tone, no hedging, no half apologies, insisting he wouldn't be bullied into writing a check just because his name prints headlines. That defiance hit a nerve.
This is all being orchestrated by Tony Buzbee, who has targeted Jay-Z. Tony Buzbee targets black men, and I believe he's going to release a 30-second clip of a tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine.
Clips of Shannon talking about accountability and no excuses, just get the job done resurfaced, and his supporters rallied behind the image they know, the grinder, the straight shooter, the guy who built a second career off discipline and real talk. But even with that energy behind him, the temperature kept rising, because lawsuits don't just create noise, they invite narratives. And online, a narrative spreads faster than any court filing ever could. From there, the claims ballooned. Threads recapped the timeline, debated the numbers, and tried to map the last 2 years like detectives with red string.
What they're getting is sued for defamation and trying to take me down. My career is all about real talk and honesty.
The figure $50 million plus became a lightning rod. To some, it screamed opportunism. To others, it hinted at something deeper, something that wouldn't be asked unless receipts existed. That tension, uncertainty versus conviction, lit up the comment sections. And right as the public settled into their corners, Shannon pointed at a name that would send this story spinning in a new direction. But that wasn't the whole story. Shannon didn't just deny the claims, he went straight at the machine he said was pushing them. He named attorney Tony Buzbee and accused him of orchestrating a smear designed to weaponize the headlines.
And one little bit of a serious question. Okay. The NFL has been asking some of the candidates about their orientation. Yes. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a good thing. You will find that somebody will come out and say that they're, whatever the situation is. And I think it's a good thing. I think the more you grow as a person, as an individual, you become secure with who you are. And that doesn't matter what orientation is, and I think that's a good thing.
In Shannon's words, this wasn't a search for truth, it was strategy. He framed Buzbee as a high-profile closer who chases powerful black men, and he even referenced whispers that the same playbook was aimed at Jay-Z. Whether you buy that or not, the message was clear. He believed this wasn't organic drama, it was manufactured. Then he dropped the detail that had everybody bracing for the next shoe, the warning about a so-called 30-second tape, not a full context video, not a raw, uncut record, a clip snippet, tight, punchy, and in Shannon's view, designed to paint him into every stereotype people are primed to recognize.
Harry Rose is gay. I mean, anytime you lay with a person that has the same thing that you have between thy legs and you sleep with them, you're gay. But I think that I probably was the first guy that he tried, and he liked it. It was good. It really was.
He said it would be edited to suggest guilt without ever proving anything. A piece of content built to go viral first and get questioned later. That's how the internet works. Once the first impression lands, the rebuttal is already late. He also made it plain he wasn't going to play defense forever. Countersue, defamation, court. He promised to drag this fight into a place where discovery matters more than engagement numbers and where allegations have to do more than trend.
it. Nobody was uncomfortable, because if you're uncomfortable, you don't do it more than one time.
That posture, aggressive, unshaken, galvanized his base. They quoted him, clipped him, and pushed back on every thread, claiming the case was a slam dunk. To them, the edited clip warning felt like a preview of the exact tactic they expected from a PR-driven takedown. But outside that circle, skepticism lived. Some people argued that calling it a setup is the oldest move in the book, and that invoking a big-name attorney doesn't automatically turn a case into a conspiracy. Others pointed out how fast reputation can shift once a narrative hardens, and how the right 30 seconds can swamp an entire career in an afternoon. As the back and forth intensified, the spotlight drifted from the lawsuit's fine print to the power dynamics around it. Who controls the footage, who controls the framing, and who benefits if the clip hits first? Shannon's play was to get ahead of the edit, to warn the public before they watched, but the industry doesn't slow down when someone yells context. And as his warning spread, another twist hit the timeline that made the stakes even higher. When the headlines hit, the fallout was immediate. ESPN told Shannon to step back from his regular spots. First take, the guest runs, the quick hits that kept his face in front of millions. The public line said he needed space to focus on the legal issue. It sounded neutral, even careful, but to fans who've watched this cycle 100 times, it looked like image protection in real time. The timing made it louder. Just weeks earlier, he'd inked a fresh multi-year deal meant to amplify his voice across TV and digital. Bigger segments, broader reach, a runway for the brand he'd spent years building. Then right on cue, the brakes screeched. The shift from expansion to absence wasn't subtle. It felt surgical. To the people paying attention, that wasn't coincidence, that was strategy. His supporters framed it as a familiar pattern. A storm gathers, a corporation creates distance, and a public figure fights two battles at once. One in court, one in perception. They argued that benches like this aren't about focus. They're about optics. Keep the logo clean. Keep advertisers calm. Wait out the narrative until the numbers say it's safe to roll him back in. Critics answered with a different read. They said ESPN did what any network would do when a flagship personality becomes the center of a lawsuit seeking more than $50 million. Risk management, not betrayal. They pointed out that stepping back doesn't declare guilt, it preserves leverage. No matter which side you were on, one thing was obvious: the platform that helped power his second act suddenly went quiet. That silence amplified everything else. When a voice that loud goes off air, the conversation doesn't stop, it migrates. Podcasts, clips, comment sections, the spaces he didn't control got louder than the ones he did. And in those spaces, the next wave of chatter surged. The old rumors that never really stuck now resurfacing with new fuel. People didn't wait for court dates or filings, they pivoted to curiosity, to patterns, to photos and familiar faces. And at the center of that shift was a name that lit the timeline on fire: Hollywood Muggler. But even that wasn't the whole story. Just as the corporate dust started to settle, the internet pivoted to the oldest rumor in Shannon's orbit: questions about his orientation. It wasn't new talk, but the context made it louder. Old clips resurfaced where he spoke calmly about acceptance in the league, about growth, about being secure in who you are. The words were measured, the delivery steady, but online, timing is everything. That calm tone fed a new wave of speculation that wasn't interested in nuance, only in headline. Into that noise walked a name that poured gasoline on the thread: Hollywood Muggler. Not a low-key stylist in the background, but a front-row figure, flashy, bold, and openly gay, standing right next to Shannon in places where cameras live. Courtside at Lakers games, strolling through airports, matching designer fits that looked more like a joint brand than a quick booking. The images did what images always do: they built a story faster than any press release could counter. To some fans, it was simple: a professional partnership. Big personality, big platform, big looks. Level up your wardrobe, level up your visuals. To others, it didn't read as styling at all. They pointed at the seats: who sits courtside with their stylist? They pointed at the travel: who moves city to city, shoulder to shoulder, as if the itinerary is shared. The comments turned from curiosity to conclusions, then to accusations, all without a single fact changing. The chatter got bolder. You mean to tell me Shannon dropped his OG stylist of 20 years for a dude who doesn't even style him? One thread claimed. A real stylist sources, tailors, evolves your look, another insisted, not just sits next to you on game night. And the tone kept climbing. A few voices framed Muggler not like staff but like arm candy, a label built for likes more than line sheets. From there, the story stopped being about clothes and started being about character. Shannon pushed back. He said what should have been obvious: working with someone who's gay doesn't make you gay. Associations aren't admissions and proximity isn't proof, but public patience is short online and speculation was already running laps. The algorithm doesn't reward restraint, it rewards the next twist. And the next twist was exactly what people expected from a timeline that lives off receipts. Because the thing about Hollywood Muggler is his name doesn't float in a vacuum. He carries a history that the internet never let go, a precedent that made this pairing feel less like coincidence and more like foreshadowing. And once that connection clicked for the crowd, they didn't ask if it mattered, they asked when it would matter. But that wasn't the whole story. To understand why the Muggler connection hit so hard, you've got to rewind to the Kerry Rhodes saga. Years back, Hollywood Muggler wasn't just a name attached to racks and runways, he was the epicenter of a storm that swallowed an NFL veteran's reputation. It started with whispers, then detonated when intimate photos of Muggler and Rhodes surfaced online, pictures that didn't look like friendly snapshots or quick backstage selfies. They looked personal. The internet didn't need captions. It supplied its own. From there, the narrative wrote itself. Old interviews of Rhodes talking thoughtfully about acceptance in the league reappeared, and suddenly every calm answer sounded like subtext. He didn't sprint to denial, and that quiet space got filled by 1,000 loud interpretations. Then came the quotes that cemented the controversy. Muggler, speaking with a confidence that cut through the noise, said Kerry Rhodes was gay and went even further with raw, bragging detail. Whether people believed him or not almost didn't matter. The claim stuck. The photos circulated. The label lingered. That episode taught the internet two things. First, that Muggler wasn't afraid to talk. Second, that once he talked, the conversation didn't end, it escalated. Fans took that memory and held it up next to Shannon's timeline like a split-screen comparison. On one side, a public figure trying to ride out rumor. On the other, the same stylist who once turned subtext into headlines. The implication didn't need to be spelled out. People saw the pattern and decided it was repeating. That's why every image of Shannon and Muggler, courtside, airport strolls, matching looks felt less like coincidence and more like foreshadowing. To the skeptical crowd, the Kerry Rhodes precedent was the blueprint: proximity, photos, then fallout. And if you believe that blueprint, the next chapter wasn't if, it was when. Comments morphed from curiosity to certainty. He's playing with fire, some said. How you partner up with the person who will air you out the second things go left. Others called it hubris, a bet that fame and control could outpace a timeline famous for tearing both apart. Meanwhile, supporters pushed back, arguing that guilt by association is still guiltless, that an outspoken stylist's past doesn't become a client's present. But debate never beats momentum online. The Rhodes storyline gave critics a shortcut to judgment, and they took it. Shannon's camp tried to reset the frame. They emphasized professionalism, insisted boundaries were intact, and argued that dressing like a star requires star-level visuals. It made sense on paper, but the internet wasn't reading paperwork. It was watching for the next leak, because once you plug Muggler into a narrative, people expect fireworks. And the longer nothing happened, the more they swore something was coming. They didn't have to wait long. The partnership splintered, and what followed looked exactly like the sequel everyone predicted. Only this time, the speculation didn't revolve around old photos. It revolved around something even more combustible in a live stream era. The idea that a leak wasn't a mistake at all. But that wasn't the whole story. When Shannon and Hollywood Muggler finally went their separate ways, the break didn't settle anything. It detonated. What could have been a quiet unfollow turned into a feed-wide autopsy. The whispers said Muggler felt iced out, more insulted than injured, and the response wasn't subtle. He started dropping hints like breadcrumbs, nothing explicit, but just sharp enough to slice. The tone was familiar to anyone who remembered the Kerry Rhodes saga: coded captions, knowing winks, and the promise that what you don't see matters more than what you do. Then came the spark that ignited the rumor barrel. Muggler posted a take that ricocheted across the timeline, accidentally going live when you have to open the app, swipe right, then swipe left twice and hit the button is absolutely insanely impossible. It wasn't just a statement, it was an accusation without the word. If you believed him, there was no fumble, no slip, no oops. There was intent. And once intent enters the chat, the narrative stops being about mistakes and starts being about strategy. The theory spread like gasoline. People rewound old clips, frame-checked timestamps, and built their own play-by-play. The story they told themselves was simple and sensational. Shannon tried to outmaneuver the rumor mill by putting out just enough to control the conversation, and the plan collapsed in public. To his critics, it sounded like a prideful chess move that turned into checkmate. To his supporters, it was another example of a troll baiting crowds with technical jargon to manufacture outrage. Even distance didn't help. After the split, new photos popped up of Shannon spending time with another man, and the cycle reset: screenshots, zoom-ins, arrows, assumptions. It didn't matter if the setting was business or downtime. The timeline acted like every casual moment was a confession. Shannon addressed the noise head on. He said working with a gay stylist didn't make him gay, that proximity isn't proof, and that people were twisting simple associations into lurid headlines for clout. He sounded tired of explaining the obvious, but explanations don't trend, speculation does. Meanwhile, the court case still hovered above everything, a storm cloud throwing shadows over every post. Supporters said this was the blueprint for a takedown: stack rumors on top of litigation until perception does the job paperwork can't. Detractors said the opposite, that none of this happens without choices, and that choosing volatility makes volatile outcomes inevitable. Either way, the ground under Shannon's feet felt like it was shifting, and each step triggered another aftershock. That's when a new name grabbed the wheel and yanked the conversation sideways. Word spread that 50 Cent had receipts, not opinions, receipts. For anyone who's watched 50 Cent operate online, that word lands like a siren. He's built a reputation on teasing, timing, and turning whispers into trending topics. And once his name got stapled to Shannon's, the temperature spiked. The internet didn't ask for details, it asked when the drop was coming. But that wasn't the whole story. Once 50 Cent's name hit the thread, the whole narrative tilted. The talk wasn't just rumors anymore, it was receipts. The one word that turns curiosity into a countdown. People didn't need proof in hand, they just needed to believe 50 had it. And if you know 50's online playbook, you understand why that belief caught fire. He's made a second career out of circling a story, dropping cryptic captions and letting everybody else do the math. Irv Gotti, Young Buck, even Diddy. He's teased, prodded, and timed posts to maximum effect, then watched the internet carry the ball the rest of the way. So the theory took shape. If Shannon was already wobbling, 50 would push, not with a press conference, with a wink, maybe a screenshot, maybe a line that sounded like an inside joke and read like a warning. It didn't matter whether anything actually dropped. Anticipation alone was enough to keep Shannon's name pinned to the top of the feed. And the longer it dragged without clarity, the more people swore it meant something bigger was loading. From there, the narrative split. One camp said this was 50's broader revenge arc, calling out men in powerful circles for what he sees as funny business, stacking another chapter on a saga he's been writing for years. The other camp called it pure trolling, a master of momentum using someone else's heat to warm his own timeline. Both versions point to the same outcome, attention. And attention in this moment hurt Shannon more than silence ever could. It's the asymmetry that makes 50 so effective online. He doesn't need the whole file, just enough innuendo to set off a chain reaction. A coy line here, a knowing nod there. The crowd supplies the rest. Meanwhile, Shannon's side had to play uphill, dispute, clarify, deny, because once your name gets tied to the word receipts, you're playing defense against a thing nobody's actually seen. That's the trap of a viral rumor cycle. Evidence becomes optional. Vibes do the heavy lifting. And with 50 hovering over the conversation like a storm that might break any second, the oxygen left in the room went to speculation, not facts. Even people who thought the whole thing was smoke found themselves checking his feed, waiting for the post, the caption, the punchline. Waiting becomes a kind of proof online. If you're watching, it must matter. But ask the larger question, and the story widened. Why was it so easy to believe 50 had something? Because the setup was already in place. A lawsuit, a public split, the stylist with a history, the whispers about an accidental live. 50 didn't have to build the house, he just had to flick the porch light. And as the crowd gathered on the lawn, another debate took over. Was this a coordinated takedown of a man who got too powerful, or the natural consequence of choices that invited chaos to his front door? Either answer leads to the same cliff. If there's a play against Shannon, it works best in the fog, where timing, pressure, and silence make people imagine the worst. And if Shannon misread the room, then each move just amplified the next rumor until even his denial sounded like background noise. With 50's shadow looming and the word receipts ringing in every thread, the conversation stopped caring about nuance and started caring about impact. And that's where the story turned into something larger than gossip, an argument about power, platforms, and what happens when independence threatens the system that used to own your voice. Because as the 50 chatter peaked, a different narrative was rising right underneath it. Zoom out and two readings collide. One says this is a coordinated hit, a 50DM plus lawsuit, an ESPN pause right after a multi-year deal, and rumor cycles boosted by a stylist with a history. Pressure applied the moment Shannon's independent platform started outsizing legacy TV. Build him up, then blunt his leverage. The other says it's self-inflicted. Choose volatile proximity, and proximity becomes product. Work closely with a lightning rod stylist, flirt with accidental live speculation, and you feed the very engine you're trying to starve. In that view, this isn't conspiracy, it's consequence. Either way, perception is outrunning paperwork. Shannon's message stays tight: consensual relationship, smear tactics, countersuit coming, but silence in key moments reads like smoke online. Muggler's cryptic barbs sustain suspense. 50 Cent doesn't even need a drop. The word receipts keeps timelines in watch mode and brands on edge. Supporters call it character assassination upgraded for the live stream era. Critics call it hubris. Both agree the brand trial is already public. Win or lose in court, the career math shifts if the narrative hardens first. So the stakes are simple. Stabilize the story before the fog becomes fact. A lawsuit still looms, a platform still carries, and a wild card still hovers. The next spark, whether a post, a clip, or nothing at all, decides which version sticks.